Good afternoon, Winnipeg Jets fans, and welcome to Jet Fuel Podcast, episode 16. I'm your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. This edition of the Jet Fuel Podcast, as always, brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Be sure to check out their website at makecanadafasteners.shop, as well as their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today. We're also brought to you by Terrico, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry. To find out more about their brand and what they do, check out terico.ca. And to Goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service, be sure to check out their website at gordytumlisongoalies.ca. The man in charge of that service, well, an ex-Winnipeg Jets 1.0 WHA goaltender that only played a few games with the organization, but pretty cool nonetheless. And pretty cool for whoever's gotten the chance to learn from him. To have that chance. But yeah, this episode going live after the Winnipeg Jets coming away with a comeback win, down 3-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes. All three goals came in the second period. The second game in a row where the Jets led up 3 in a single period, of course, letting up 3 in the first against Dallas on Thursday night. But something changed, something sparked for Winnipeg in this matchup in the third period, and it came off one of those early shifts from that first line in Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and as Rick Bowness made the line adjustment in putting Nikolai Ehlers on that line. And Scheifele gets the Jets scoring not started, but he kind of creates on that play with the forecheck, able to cause a turnover and have that puck still stay on along the wall. The Jets end up picking it up. Ehlers makes a beautiful little soft pass, short pass to Connor near the point, and Connor lets one rip to put the game to 3-1. And then shortly after that, Nino Niederreiter ends up finding open space. Nate Schmidt with a beautiful cross-ice pass to feed him, and he ends up having some poise, some puck patience, and taking it to the backhand, and then getting on the power play. Scheifele ends up being clutch, picking up a loose puck, it gets poked to him. He picks up the puck, he dangles to the backhand, puts it past Kochetkov, and it ends up being a tie game. And then the Jets go back to work again, right? Able to get that game-winning goal. It just started rolling from that very first few minutes in the third period, and good momentum towards the Jets going their way. And really, it seemed like they were playing with more jump, more life at that point in the game in the third period, which was big time. Through the first 40 minutes of this one, the Jets kind of looked like they were having it taken to them a bit. Once again, 5-on-5 play wasn't the greatest for the Jets in this matchup. They made their mistakes, especially in that second period, getting caught twice off of the rush, leaving one defenseman to defend on the way back. Morrissey, two guys crossing on that second goal. It was hard for him to defend, and ends up beating Hellebuck with the shot there. And then on the power play, it was just a great feed through, and Carolina ends up making it 3-0 at the time, right? But I think the difference in this matchup, honestly, for the Jets too, was putting Nikolai Ehlers finally on that first line again. I mean, you could just see it. There was just so much more created from that top line offense. It was fantastic to see. Also awesome to see Sean Monahan scoring that game-winning goal. Kochetkov coming out and losing on that puck race to it. Monahan has a wide open cage to put it into the net. So the Jets back into the win column. It wasn't pretty again. They got outshot. Hellebuck made some huge saves down the line. But awesome that Bowness finally put Nikolai Ehlers back on that top line. We saw great things happen. Scheifele stepped up his game big time in that third period. We saw the depth come through from the Jets and Nino Niederreiter getting on the board. Second line scoring and Sean Monahan. And with the Jets, still wasn't a fan of Perfetti being scratched. Hopefully it goes to the plan of the Jets of, he learns and gets out of the slump somehow. He can learn from sitting and watching the press box. I don't really agree with that notion. We're going to get into it here, me and Evan Samoilov, so we'll save it for that. But yeah, to see Cole Perfetti scratched, it's crazy. And yes, he's been in a slump, but Rick Bowness really hasn't given him, the confidence needed for a 21-year-old. In my opinion, even though he's on the second line, supposedly he hasn't averaged second line minutes on this team. The third line has played more so over that second line. But yeah, huge win for the Jets. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff that we were talking about before the game, me and Evan Samoilov, as this is a pre-recorded segment. Did this morning, but before we get into that, just want to see where the Jets are at in the standings. After this one, I believe they tie Dallas with 3 games in hand on them going into tonight or going into today for top spot in the Central Division. But yeah, without further ado, let's bring on Evan Samoilov now. We talk about the Jets' previous game against Dallas heading into today's matchup. Talked about Cole Perfetti and just the lineup decisions that we've disagreed with that Rick Bowness has made. We touch on how the power play has been great as well, and also talking about what we think the Jets should do at trade deadline, throwing in some names into the ring, into the hat. You won't want to miss it. Coming up on Jet Fuel Podcast Episode 16, brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, Terraco, and Goaltenders. Enjoy, everybody. Evan Samoilov, good friend of mine, joining the show for the first time in a while, man. I mean, we've been talking consistently throughout this season over Snap and whatnot, but yeah, it's great to have you back on the show. Jets taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in about 40 minutes from now. 39 on the nose at this point, since we are doing this pre-recorded in the morning. Jets coming off of a 4-1 loss on Thursday night, Evan, after having 4 straight wins heading into that one. First off, just want to get your thoughts on the past game for the Jets, the loss on Thursday night.
Yeah, it was pretty hyped up. It was a battle for first place in the Central. The Jets do have a couple games in hand on both Colorado and Dallas, but that was probably a wake-up call the team needed, especially just like, they've had a very easy schedule over the last couple games. You played against teams like Chicago, Arizona, St. Louis, a lot of teams that aren't necessarily great, and when they have played against those teams, I don't think they've looked as dominant as they were early on in the year. Their 5-on-5 play has dropped it's dropped horrendously, just to put it lightly. I lack of a better term. They've been relying a lot on the power play. Their power play has looked really, really good. So it's kind of like an opposite here. You started off the year great 5-on-5 with a really bad power play. And now we're at a point where your power play is producing at an insane clip right now, but the 5-on-5 play has just completely lacked, especially from the top line. So I think it was a wake up call because Dallas, they're looking like the team out of the Central. You had a guy like Logan Stankovic, and man, did he look really good in the lineup. And then they also didn't even have Chris Tanev, who they recently acquired. So yeah, I think the Winnipeg Jets are in a spot where if you're going to want to compete with the top teams in the Central, I feel like you're going to have to, first of all, figure out how to be better at 5-on-5 like they were early in the year. And then you also want to figure out, what you're going to add at the deadline.
Yeah, in that game against Dallas, I mean, Winnipeg starts off out shooting them 12-10 in that first period, but we look at, the recap here, first period, the Jets go down 3-0, so shots for in terms of against didn't really matter then. And as the game went along, Dallas started to control the game more. Winnipeg getting their only goal on the power play, which makes it 9 goals in their last 9 games on the man advantage now, but getting outshot 16-6 in that third period. Dallas completely controlling the play.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail exactly on the head. Jets ran into, I think, the best team in the Central. I've said it from the start of the season. I think that Dallas is the most complete team in the Central, and we saw it Thursday night come full through against the Winnipeg Jets. And you're right, they didn't even have Chris Tanev in the lineup, which, my goodness, what an addition to decor that already has great talent on it. And yeah, I mean, it's been a total flip in terms of we were harping on the Jets to get the power play going. They finally found two plays that have worked, finding Monahan in the bumper spot, and then Velarde, if it's not open, he makes his magic from the side of the net. And it's really nice to see that coming through for the Jets. But 5-on-5 play, you're right, has dropped off. And when you look at the top line, they've been hemmed in more than anyone on the team has. And you can't have that. Yes, they're coming through and producing the bulk of the offense, but you're leaving the momentum to go to the other team more so for them to generate good momentum. And we're seeing the other lines, not as well being able to defend, and the top line not being able to defend as well right now. The third line has been going through a drought too, and your second line on paper, you're not playing them as much. So it's been a few things in here where it's like, yeah, the 5-on-5 play is lacking, but you're not deploying your players in the right positions. I think that Nikolai Ehlers is playing on the second line and not getting first line minutes. Yes, he's playing through an injury, but I don't buy that it's that bad considering what he did against Chicago. Yes, he has a game time decision for today, but Ehlers is still making his magic happen and producing better than most Jets. He's looked really good with Sean Monahan, which is great. It's nice that they can keep that together. But what happened going back to that top line that was so good for this Winnipeg Jets team? And where's the trust in Cole Perfetti? I get the guy is scoreless in like his last 16 games. He has 1 point in like his last 6 games or more now that, since that was reported. But when he was on his consistent streak, Evan, Rick Bonus didn't up his ice time. He's only played over 15 minutes of 5-on-5 time this year once. One time for a 21-year-old who's proven to be a consistent player and your smartest, arguably your smartest, getting put on the fourth line, still doing some good things. It's just a lot of things don't make sense. I think player deployment has a lot to do with the struggles 5-on-5 right now and stubbornness from up top and Rick Bonus and that coaching staff in deploying these lines.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that question, when it comes like if you're going to be a legitimate contender in the NHL, you cannot have a top line of Connor, Scheifele, Velarde that's getting hemmed in every single game. You could look at any analytics you want. You can even just use your eye test. You can just look at just the overall game score just with anything with this top line. They're getting outplayed by bottom feeder teams. Game against Chicago, they were outplayed. Game against Arizona, completely outplayed. And yeah, people are going to make the argument like, oh, but they scored all the goals. Oh, Connor had 2 goals. Scheifele had 3 points. You have to remember that we can't equate their 5-on-5 play to power play. And like, it's insane to me. Like, it's incredible how you can watch these guys get 20 plus minutes a night. These are supposed to be the guys that you lean on to produce the offense. These are the guys you lean on to win games. And they're constantly getting outplayed. And we have a large, this isn't just a small game sample size. We have a multi-year sample size of Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele not working together.
Yep.
Having Gabe Velarde with them is the equivalent of having Blake Wheeler back on his team in the early 2020s. Like it's getting to a point where how can you watch this line at 5-on-5 and think, yeah, this is our line that needs to play 20 plus minutes a night? It's ridiculous. And I am so glad you brought up Cole Perfetti because just the complete outrage on social media with Cole Perfetti
Oh, I forgot
has
about.
like I'm speechless. Like keep in mind he's a young player.
Oh boy.
This is his first full season. All right, last year he played something like 30 or 40 games. I don't know off the top of my head, but it wasn't a lot. And people are acting like he's not ready for the NHL. People are acting like he's an anchor to a line. People are acting like that, oh, he's too small. He can't keep up with the game. He's just going to get hurt. He has 30 points in 58 games. As a young player on an ELC, these are the kind of players you want on your roster if you're going to make a cup run. Did you not just see what Dallas just did to Winnipeg? Think about all the young players on their team that are on ELCs that are producing. So instead of cutting Cole Perfetti's minutes, which I think are valid based on a slump, you don't write a guy off. And you don't just stick him to the fourth line and give him 9 to 10 minutes a night. Not to mention in the third periods, he doesn't get any shifts down the stretch. Whether they're losing or winning, he's stapled to the bench. And what does that say for a player's confidence? The Jets have such an issue when it comes to young players requesting trades. We've seen it many times in the past. We've seen it with Jacob Truba. We've seen it with Patrick Laine. We've seen it with Dubois. We've seen it with everybody. You even have guys like Billy Hainola and Logan Stanley. Even though Logan Stanley was ridiculous, I was about to say a word I shouldn't. It's ridiculous because he's been given every opportunity. But this is a guy you need on your roster if you're going to be a competitive team. And people always like to equate their eye test. They look at the slump he's on where he's not scoring goals. Keep in mind, every player goes on slumps. Lowry hasn't scored since the beginning of January. Appleton has 5 points in his last 21 games. Niederreiter went on like a 13 goalless streak. Iafallo was on like a 16-game goalless streak. But you don't see people saying, send him to the Moose. Let's trade him. Let's get him out of here. So the reaction on Cole Perfetti just needs to chill out, man. Like it's getting ridiculous. I'm seeing people saying to trade him for guys like Scott Laughton and Sean Walker. Like, what are you talking about? Like young players like this putting up 30 points in 58 games at the age of 22, it's insane. You don't see that very often. You look at his draft class, there's maybe 5 players I would have ahead of Cole Perfetti in that draft class. This is a player you do not give up on so early, so quickly. I just think the reaction to his play is completely ridiculous.
I forgot. I kind of put it out of my memory for a sec there about the the Logan Stanley hypocrisy. I almost lost myself there laughing if you folks
Yeah,
couldn't
like
follow that.
think about it. You have people that are saying, "Oh, you got to give these players time. Oh,
Ridiculous.
give them time to develop.
Yeah.
It takes them 3, 4, 5. I've even
Mhm.
heard 6 years to develop, and we're already writing off Cole Perfetti, a guy that's been proven to be a positive impact in the NHL.
Yep.
Not to mention that people seem to think that he's not a defensive forward. His defensive metrics are some of the best on the Jets. Anyways, I'm done. I got my rant out of the way. It's just ridiculous seeing on social media the reaction to Cole Perfetti.
Yeah, it's hypocrisy, it's bias, and yeah, I mean, I get it. We're all passionate fans, but come on, guys. We gotta use our brains every once in a while here. He's 22 years old. Let's not forget he's a top 10 pick. And he showed consistency throughout the early part of the year, right? At a point streak of over 10 plus games, didn't get his minutes increased. Like 30 points in 58 games played while averaging 14 minutes and 2 seconds per night in ice time. You know who's getting more minutes than him? Nikolai Ehlers, as well as yeah, those two guys. It's a guy in Mason Appleton. So yeah, the priorities right now for the Winnipeg Jets, I think that's going to be the biggest thing because like yes, the offense is struggling, but we've seen how good this team can be when you put the top line together of Nikolai Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi. We saw it back in December. We saw how it elevated Nikolai Ehlers playing. And guess what? This team is deep enough at this point, and I think Sean Monahan is a great piece that's come in. That yes, he's been building good chemistry with Nikolai Ehlers, but give him some time with Kyle Connor. Hair Perfetti on that line. You got your playmaker playing with your best goal scorer, and you still got that offense on that second line that should come through at a high level, and a first line that was arguably the best in the NHL when it was playing. And that takes more of a load off of a third line who just isn't putting the puck in the net, but they are producing some really good metrics in terms of hemming teams in, doing what they do on the cycle, right? Because they're an energy line, they get physical, they win puck battles, get it to the point, get to the net, try to create some good momentum for your team. You're right. That cannot be the line you go to in the big moments like Rick Bowness has. And speaking of Cole Perfetti, again, you know, it's a crazy stat, Evan. They haven't played him one single second in OT this year. Not
Yeah,
a
and
single
that
second.
is
In
that is
overtime, for your smartest player, your best playmaker, like arguably your best playmaker already, he's shown it that he's smart and reliable 2 ways. You give a guy with that high IQ more open ice. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But yet we're going back to guys that, yes, are producing chances, but have proven they can't put the puck in the net. Like you said, Lowry hasn't scored since the beginning of January. Niederreiter has been putting the puck in the net somewhat, but not that often. Same with Appleton. It's just It's crazy to me. Where did things go wrong, and why all of a sudden is the media getting called out for pumping Perfetti's tires? Like, everyone I've seen in the media talking about Cole Perfetti, everything has been valid who has been for him. And, you're not like, yes, he's been in a slump, but really you're putting I follow on that line who, yes, has looked good with Ehlers and Monahan while being on. That was a positive line in that game. If anything, 5-on-5 out of the lines that were played against Dallas. But I follow has the same point production as Perfetti in the last 16 games. So yeah, we're gonna move on after this. It's just had to get this ran out because it's gross seeing it. And I know it's sports, and at the end of the day, there's more important things. But like a young player in this franchise that can be a franchise player that proves he can be in the top six. Like what happened to Perfetti is amazing. Now we're at Perfetti should be sent to the minors. Perfetti should be traded. Like, how did we get here? It's crazy how things completely do a 180. It goes from, oh my God, this team is the team of destiny to, man, it's looking like last year we're going through the same slide. And yeah, it's crazy world we live in, Evan.
Yeah, it's a big overreaction, and it's just insane to me. I feel like, Jets fans, especially on social media, they're very passionate. They're very, we have a very solid fan base here with people that really do care about the city, that really do care about the team. But pump your tires on a guy like Perfetti. We aren't talking about like a 28-year-old established NHLer here. We're talking about a player that is just coming into his own. He's played just over 100 games in the NHL. Like, this is a guy that's going to be a top six winger. You could even argue top line forward for years to come down the line. So let's take it easy on him. He's in a slump. He's going to snap out of it. Unless, of course, they add at the deadline, then I think we have a really good talking point. But yeah, let's continue on.
Yeah, exactly. And we will move on in our discussion now. Talking about trade deadline, Evan. It's coming up very soon. We're in March, man. It's crazy. Playoffs are going to be here before we know it. The Jets have made, I think, a really good move in Sean Monahan. I think it's safe to say now that that is a W.
Yeah.
Um, might have Nick Lynham in shambles, but honestly, I think Nick is stoked either way, being the Jets super
To be
fan.
fair, to be fair, I was also not excited at first giving up a first rounder for Monahan. I'm pretty big into analytics and looking at his analytical numbers. It seemed like he was relying lots on the power play, relying lots on his line mates. But since coming to Winnipeg, he's just been a perfect fit for the team. I still have a bit of questions 5-on-5. But him alone on the power play, just the way that it's done a complete 180 in the other direction from being like literally just embarrassing to watch to actually being a legit threat every single time they're on the ice. I think it's a massive dub for the Jets. And so far, I think they've got their money's worth with a late first round pick for a guy like Sean Monahan.
Yeah, I mean, the risk always giving up first pick. Like you expect a good return. He's almost point per game. Most of the offense he has come on the power play, but I think he's settling in, Evan. And yeah, the thing I thought about, the more I thought about the move when it was made, the more I liked it off rip. Especially since like the Jets still do have a first round pick for next year that they can deal, potentially in a trade coming up along with another player potentially. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think that Monahan's just that good third like role player on the line, right? Needs to go to the right places. He has that big frame, and he utilizes it well. He screens goalies well, and he's really good with a stick. I think the strongest part of his shot has been his one timer so far, and that's come through on the power play. But the Jets can certainly add more, and Dallas is kind of put that pressure on now. I think improving their decor. Dallas has, I think, better offensive punch it's shown than Winnipeg this season. I've been adamant about this team going out to add a defenseman, but the more I think about it, it wouldn't hurt to also go out and add a forward, even though you might be also getting Rutger McGroarty. And the deeper, the better, I say. Evan, we'll start off with your picks, though. Who are some names? Give me like two or three in particular that you want the Jets to go in on this trade deadline.
For sure. I'll kind of take it into a couple directions here. I'll think about players I think the Jets should get, and then I'll do kind of more realistic on what I expect the Jets to do. I think you made a really good point with McGroarty because I think if given the opportunity, Michigan, they're not a top four NCAA team this year like last year. They're very much in like the 7 to 10 range when it comes just to the rocker, or just to the rocker, to the record, to the roster. And I think you might get a McGroarty into your lineup by the end of the season and potentially in the playoffs. I think he would be a perfect fit alongside a Lowry and Niederreiter. I just feel like the way he plays, I feel like that would just be a great internal ad.
Yeah.
Are the Jets going to do it? I'm not 100% sure. We've seen them add guys at the end of the season like Andrew Kopp, but he never played in the playoffs. So I wonder about that. But I know the Jets and the Flyers have been at it with each other all year. It's been a constant narrative around social media is that there's constantly Philadelphia Flyers scouts over at Moose games and at Jet games, and then vice versa with the Jets. And I really, really expect the Jets to push hard for a defenseman. I feel like there's one glaring error on your roster, and that's the fact that Neil Pionk is playing 20 minutes a night, and Neil Pionk cannot be playing 20 minutes a night on a contending team. It's just not it's not sustainable. It's not ideal and it's not optimal if you're going to make a cup run. So I could totally see them targeting a guy like Sean Walker, who again has also been a player that's been mentioned numerous times on social media and been reported that he's been trying to get contract talks with Philadelphia, but looks like they're going to move on from him. I would also be interested to see if the Jets would target a guy like Anthony Mantha out of Washington. I feel like that would be another sneaky ad. The Jets' biggest issue is scoring, and a guy like Mantha kind of fits the bill. I feel like he's kind of that unicorn player that fans would universally like. He's a good offensive driver. He's big. He's able to get in front of the net, get the board battles. That's another player I think that would fit really, really well
Yep.
with that third line with Lowry and Niederreiter being able to drop Appleton down. How about you? What kind of players are you would you expect the Jets to get, or would you like to see the Jets get? Because I,
Yeah.
I have a couple of ones that I think the Jets should go after, but might be too unrealistic. But we've been shocked before by the Jets at trade deadline day.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, Kevin Cheveldayoff has a pretty strong deadline track record in terms of like he never makes a trade where like the Jets they come out of it as losers. Like he didn't make the biggest splashes last year. I think he should have made a bigger splash, but the players he brought in were positives in Niederreiter as well as Nemesnikov. I think that him making that move for Monahan, I've said it so many times, probably sound like a broken record, but only $1.9 million for him, even though he's a UFA at the end of the season. Like it's tremendous to allow them to be able to make moves still to go for it. I think it was a calculated move by him. And honestly, like I've been on the Chevy hate train before. He really has turned things around, especially since that Velarde deal. I think that he's done a lot more positives in a single span in terms of like throughout the last year than I remember in a long time from Cheveldayoff. But yeah, I think defenseman is going to be huge to go after. I loved how Neil Pionk started off the season. I thought he was a huge surprise, but as the season's gone along, he's just regressed in his play, right? And that's no personal shot at him. It's just the way things are, and he's just not the type of player that it should be top four on your team in terms of a team going for a deep Stanley Cup run that the Jets should be going for. They got one more first round pick to use. I think that Chevy, he did miss out on trying to go for Chris Tanev. Maybe he was trying to discuss it, maybe he wasn't. But now that puts
Yeah, to
pressure on the Jets to
to
go.
add to that, Pierre LeBrun did report that the Jets were not in on Tanev at all. They did not even inquire about him.
So, yeah, I believe that's a huge mistake. So, just as I'm praising Chevy, hopefully he makes it up. Hopefully he makes it up here coming up. But yeah, I think Sean Walker is really enticing. You look at his analytics, some of the best on that Philadelphia decor on a team that's top three in the Metropolitan Division. My only question is, even though it's been reported and there's been rumors that the Jets are acquiring about him, does Philly feel like this is the time to move a guy like Sean Walker? I think the reason they would is because if they can't get him to sign, then I see that totally being possible where it does come into play that the Jets can go out and acquire a guy like him. They got the pieces to do so, and who knows, maybe Philadelphia has some interest in taking on a Pionk. Going the other way, I guess we'd have to wait and see. But in terms of forward, I'd like an Anthony Mantha. I also wouldn't mind them bringing in a guy like Jordan Eberle, from the Seattle Kraken, who, yes, he's $5.5 million, but he has some experience. He brings some added offense to this team that would be much needed. You can slide him into that top six and play him with guys like a Connor, or if Ehlers stays on that second line, like you got Ehlers, Monahan, Eberle there. So those would be two guys that I would target for sure if I were the Jets, that I think you absolutely improve the top four at that point, inserting Sean Walker in for whatever you get for him. And if you can make something happen for Jordan Eberle, that forward group, which I think is deeper than it has been in years for Winnipeg, gets even deeper.
Yeah, I actually really like that you mentioned Jordan Eberle because that's definitely an off the board pick. And I really do like it. I feel like that would be a very nice fit here in Winnipeg, having Jordan Eberle, whether he would be playing alongside Shifley and Connor. We know that line ain't going to get split up. But even just playing him with Ehlers and Monahan, I think that rounds up your top six pretty nicely. And to kind of go into it, I've been kind of speculative when it comes to the Jets. I've been kind of looking, reading between the lines here, with the whole Gary Bedman coming here to Winnipeg, the whole ticket campaign with the Winnipeg Jets saying that they're all in. I have a really strong feeling. Again, I have no sources. I have nothing to back up anything I'm saying, but I feel like the Jets are really going to make a swing here at the deadline. And I'm saying that just because of what I'm reading between the lines here. You have a team that's struggling with attendance. You want to know what's going to help with that attendance and the revenue? A long playoff run. Do you want to know what's going to bring fans into the building? Making big moves and showing the fan base that they're in it to win it this year. You have guys like Hellebuck and Shifley locked up long term, but their value is going to slowly diminish over time. If you're looking to push for a cup, now is the time. And I noticed during the St. Louis Blues game, Doug Armstrong and Cheveldayoff have a pretty big history of making moves with each other. And I really do believe the Jets are going to make a pitch for Pavel Buchnevich. And I really believe that that's a player they want to target. I feel like they really want to round up that top six. I feel like they really want to make Connor and Shifley work. If you're able to put a guy like Buchnevich on that top line with them, and you're able to drop Velarde with Monahan and Ehlers, I think that would just be absolutely incredible for the Jets. I think it would be a big win for them. Not to mention that I saw Nemestikov talking with Buchnevich after the game, which is very similar to when Blake Wheeler was talking with Paul Stastny before the Blues traded him to Winnipeg for that big cup
Ah,
run. So
yeah.
again, I'm being very speculative here. And let's just say for some reason their focus isn't on forward and they want to target a defenseman. Last season we heard rumblings of the Jets being interested in a certain Arizona player who is no longer in Arizona because he was traded.
Hmm.
And I can totally see the Jets if they're looking to swing big and fill up that defensive core and run a legit top four that can compete for a Stanley Cup. I can totally see them again going back and trying to target Jacob Chychrun out of Ottawa. Ottawa has now lost three straight to three very mediocre teams in Washington, Nashville, and Arizona. This is a team that is not going to make the playoffs. And I can totally see Cheveldayoff calling back about Jacob Chychrun and trying to add him to this roster. We know the Jets have their guys, and we know if they have their guys, they're gonna push hard for them. So I expect the Jets to swing big, and I think it'll be one of Buchnevich or Chychrun on the back end. That's just kind of what I'm feeling with their all-in campaign. That's just kind of what I'm feeling with the situation with the team right now. And the Jets have the assets. Like, they still have Montreal's second round pick. They still have their first round pick in 2025. They got prospects like Kobe Barlow, Brad Lambert, Ville Heinola, Nikita Chibrikov, Elias Salmonson. Like they have the pieces to target a big fish. Now, do I think Chevy is gonna do it? That has me questioning things, but I have a strong belief that the Jets are going to swing big at the deadline, and I think they're going to try and get a player that's going to really be an impact for this roster.
Yeah, I think Chevy has to be operating under the mindset he has with these two trades, the two big trades he's made most recently. First with Dubois coming here, and then Dubois getting sent over to LA, of course, in that deal. It seemed like his back was against the wall. This is how this front office should be operating right now. And I love hearing from Chipman in terms of how he spoke, how he's truly not satisfied. And I think that should really make some Jets fans happy knowing that the man in charge of the franchise wants to see better results, wants more attendance. What are they going to do? The urgency right now, like you said, is to truly go all in. And I don't think we truly did see that last year. I think this was still a team that was naive and trusting what we already have, right? And look where it got them. They still got a first round pick next year, second round pick from Montreal this year. They even got a first round pick for 2026. And yes, players have requested trades out of Winnipeg, but I think a huge statement this year was them going out and signing your franchise goaltender and frankly, your franchise centerman to long-term deals, which pretty much brings them to the end of their careers in Winnipeg, close to that. So yeah, the faith is in that room. There's a lot of belief in this room. I feel like there's still a lot of belief in it now internally, even though they haven't been producing the same 5-on-5 numbers. This is still a team that's won 7 out of the last 9 games. And to them, no matter what opponent you play, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting into the win column. So this is the time to swing big and getting back to Chevy. He needs to be operating on an aggressive mindset. St. Louis is dropped out. I don't think they're going to be in playoff contention for much longer. I could see this team selling. We've seen it before. And like you said, there's been ties to the Blues and the Jets in the past, and the Jets have the assets to swing big. They did last year, but they didn't do it. Same if you want to add Jacob Chikrin, UFA in 2025. You have the assets to swing big. You can bring him in now. He's a left-handed shot defenseman. That's why I
He
really like
does play
him.
right side though. He
He
does
does
play
play
right side.
right side, right side. Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, I think that those would be two fantastic moves for this Winnipeg Jets team. If you can add a Jacob Chikrin in, as well as you know, Pavel Buchnevich, like this team solidifies themselves as I think potentially a favorite in the Central Division and the favorite in the West. And yes, this is all speculation, but not claiming to be a Jets reporter. I'm just a Winnipeg Jets fan when we talk Winnipeg Jets here on the Jet Fuel podcast. And I think it is very valid speculation considering the things that we've been hearing now. Will it come true? Maybe not, but this is the time to go all in. You got a guy like Pavel Buchnevich, you instantly add more offensive punch to the top six than you've already had. You got a guy that's shown he can play big top 6 minutes, and you get a big time defenseman, maybe in Jacob Chikrin. Like, how couldn't that be a win for the Jets and make them that much better?
Yeah, and the reason why I lean Buchnevich is that he's not just a UFA. He's locked up for 2 more seasons, and that kind of fits the window for the Jets very nicely. You recently just signed Nino Niederreiter to an extension. You signed Vladimir Nemestikov, who we've seen on the ice has a really good relationship with Buchnevich. He's signed long term, or not long term, but he's signed for 2 seasons as well. And he's publicly said to the media that he's happy to stay in Winnipeg. He loves playing in Winnipeg. So again, I'm reading between the lines here, but I really do believe the Jets are going to make a push for Buchnevich. If not, I can see them either swinging and getting a Chitrin. And let's just say that that's not the case. I still do believe they're going to add some pieces at the deadline. Maybe not to those caliber of players, but I think they're definitely going to make some moves to improve this roster come playoff time.
Yeah, and I think at this point, like I've been the biggest Chevy critic, you know this, Evan, like from our
Yeah. Oh,
conversation.
I know.
And I do think he's finally realizing that it is truly time to actually go all in, and we've been seeing this ever since that trade he made for Velarde in the summer, along with Iafallo and Kapari coming over, and yeah, making that huge statement by signing Shifley and Hellebuck long term. Evan, it's been great talking with you, man. Always fun. This was a passionate segment. I love it. Kicking off the
Yeah,
Saturday the
it's been
right
a
way.
crazy season, and I've had to get all of my expressions out since I haven't been on for so long. But thanks again for having me. Hope to be on again soon, and I hope to talk about some big additions at the deadline to help the Jets reach the Stanley Cup final.
And great to have Evan Samoilov on this edition of the Jet Fuel Podcast. Of course, brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terracoa, and Goaltenders, as you just saw on the screen. And yeah, me and Evan getting a bit heated when it came to talking about Cole Perfetti. Now, he was a healthy scratch in this game, and look, I get it. He's lacked in point production, 1 point in his last 16 games. But, like, just looking at the stats, like I said already, I don't think that Rick Bowness has truly been confident in Cole Perfetti this season. It's just my personal opinion. People say he's gone top six line minutes, right? He's gotten power play opportunity. And, yeah, you got to play better, produce more in some people's eyes to deserve a spot in the top six. But the thing is, and people are going to say, well, analytics don't tell the whole story, which they don't. But when I've watched Cole Perfetti this season, I've seen him make good plays with the puck. Now, sometimes in the corner, does he lose in some puck battles? Does he look a bit hesitant? He did more so towards before getting benched, but that's the thing. I think that no, he feels like he's in a situation, in my opinion, personally, and this is all speculation, but just my personal opinion that like no matter how good I play, I'm not going to get the ice time anyways. So what does that do to your 21-year-old? A guy that should be a huge part of this franchise. I mean, 1402 average of ice time this season, which is below what a guy like Mason Appleton has been averaging, below what that top or that third line has been averaging of Lowry and Niederreiter. How do you truly expect to get the best results out of him? And look, if he's struggling to score, right, like me and Evan talked about, like Kyle Connor can produce on that top line, obviously, and we saw it today. But we also saw it today that Nikolai Ehlers was a difference maker on that line. So I get it. Gabe Vilardi is out, and credit to the Jets for winning without a guy in Gabe Vilardi, having Brendan Dillon out of the lineup, and winning with Logan Stanley in it, even though his minutes were sheltered, right? But yeah, I just feel like if you were to pair Perfetti with a guy like Kyle Connor, which it's worked in the past, you can still have really good options in your top six if you go that way. And look, I follow played well today. He's a guy that's going to do the little things well. He's going to work hard, and he plays well defensively too. But for those saying that Perfetti is a liability in the defensive zone, I don't agree. I mean, once again, the metrics and analytics, they aren't everything, but they kind of are the closest thing to matching an eye test, in my opinion, in terms of the production out there. And Perfetti's has been positive this season. Yes, he's struggled down the line, but when you demote him to fourth line, yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah, I think it's silly that they scratched him. The Jets still able to get the win without him in the lineup, and huge game for Josh Morrissey. Another 3-assist game, and what a big-time play he made on that power play to poke that puck to Mark Scheifele to set up that game-tying goal. And by the way, made a mistake. Kochetov, the goaltender, I said he lost the puck race in the opening. He didn't. He ended up turning it over, so he did end up losing on that puck battle, I guess, on that puck race in the end, since he ended up turning it over right into Monahan's possession. And great play by him to be aware, to have some hesitation before to, get in the right position, shoot it into that wide open cage. The Jets power play again, scoring another goal, a big time goal in the third. And yeah, it's great to see this Winnipeg Jets team find that jump and find that next gear in that third period. And once again, I mean, it's the big plays by a guy like Josh Morrissey, the impact of Mark Scheifele, but good things happen, great things happen when you put Nikolai Ehlers on the top line. And guess he is capable of playing top line minutes, out there. Some may not agree because he's dealing with injury, yet he's played every single game this season for the Jets, and yeah, it was a game time decision. There's been some stuff he's been dealing with, but yeah, Ehlers has been great this season and proven once again how valuable he truly is. Never trade that guy. But yeah, we are going to head to a transition here. I'll preview the upcoming games for the Jets and then send you off with some final words here on the Jet Fuel podcast for episode 16 here on gshow.ca on G Show Productions. Welcome back, everybody, to the Jet Fuel podcast. This one brought to you by Mechanic Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. As always, we're going to throw Terrico on screen. And yeah, for the Winnipeg Jets, they're now tied for first place in terms of points with the Dallas Stars. They have the best point percentage in the division. If the playoffs were to start today, well, Winnipeg would be playing against Colorado if they just go by points. The Dallas Stars would be playing against the Nashville Predators. Dallas, of course, got Winnipeg's number this year, 3-0 against them, getting off to a really good start in that game on the scoreboard. And, of course, like talked about, just controlling the play and limiting the Jets in shots in that third period in that one. But, yeah, the Jets, a big advantage they have still is they got 3 games in hand. They're now tied with Dallas for that division lead. The Jets have 139 goals against heading into today, now 142 against, which is way better than Dallas and Colorado's, for Colorado 189 against, and for Dallas 188 against. And for Winnipeg, going up against a Carolina team today where Carolina had them through the first 40 minutes, and of course Winnipeg finding that much needed spark in the third to get things going. Great job by Bonus to finally put Ehlers on that first line near the end of that second period. And the Jets with an opportunity here to go out against Buffalo Sabres team who hasn't been great this year. I had high hopes for the Sabres team actually this year, looking to build off of last year's success of almost making it into the playoffs. But yeah, for Buffalo, they've been playing some better hockey as of late. Not spectacular, but 6-4 in their last 10 games heading into tonight. Winnipeg will be playing against them tomorrow, so on a back-to-back. And yeah, I feel like the Jets, it's going to be a game where they're going to be up for it. They need to play an organized game, and you can't come out flat against not only a team like Buffalo, but against any opponent. And we've seen it cost the Jets at times. I expect for the Jets to get off to a good start, and honestly expect for them, if they play to their game, play to their systems. I don't see how this can't be a game where they get back to dominating more of the play 5-on-5, but that hasn't been the case so much for the Jets in the last little while against even teams like Chicago. They're not having the same type of success controlling the puck and breaking out of their zone with ease as they have in the past. So if the Jets can clean up the stuff in their game, like we saw them do in the third period today and finally find that spark, I think they have a good chance to win back-to-back. But if they play like they did consistently throughout the first 40 minutes of this game against Carolina, I think Buffalo could make them pay. Buffalo still has talent on that team. Tage Thompson has been getting better as the season has gone along, putting up more points. Should know I have him on one of my fantasy teams. But yeah, I think Jets, Brossois probably gets the start. I think he's going to have a good game. And I think, yeah, the Jets are going to come to play and play an organized enough game to come out and get that victory tomorrow. And then they play a back-to-back against the Seattle Kraken. Not entirely, but Tuesday and on Friday. They'll be at home on Tuesday and then on the road on Friday. Then going up against the Vancouver Canucks. And yeah, these are going to be some tough games for Winnipeg. Seattle's also been playing better as the season has gone along. This was a playoff team last year as well. They're on a 2-game win streak heading into today. And yeah, this is a Seattle Kraken team who, last season they were shooting at an insanely high level shooting percentage-wise. They were near the top of the league. This season, not as much. They've gotten good goaltending. This could be one of those games where the Jets get snake bitten, but I think, playing in front of the home crowd, the Jets have a great chance to go out and win that game. I'm not so sure about how they'll fair on the road on that Friday, but they'll have some good days rest. And yeah, against Vancouver, I mean, this is a team that's been fantastic all season long, but the Jets, when it looked like it was going to be a disadvantage for them, special teams wise, they actually won the special teams battle last time out. Vancouver probably looking for a revenge game in that one against the Jets. Should be tight, but yeah, I think if the Jets can play to their systems, find a way to get more going 5-on-5. I do think a huge part of that is in the line deployment as well, as already talked about. If Nikolai Ehlers, you place him on that top line, I think it makes the group that much more dangerous, and we could be seeing those 5-on-5 numbers going up. The power play is on a roll. It's got good momentum, and that's a great sign for the Jets. And this is a good sign as well, I guess, taking a look at it. Like, we've been looking at it as like the Jets are playing terrible against these teams that aren't as good as them, but they're still coming away with wins. And at the end of the day, it is all about winning. You got to win 16 to win the Stanley Cup once you make it to the playoffs. But yeah, as for the Winnipeg Jets, like, they're finding success on the power play, which they haven't had this season consistently, like we've seen throughout these last 10 games. And we know how good this team can be 5-on-5 if they get to, the line combinations that should be put in place, like putting your best players in the positions that they should be. This team continues to rely on goaltending when they need to, and if you can get back to just playing your game in terms of controlling more play 5-on-5, being less hemmed in your zone, making, smoother transitions out, finding a way to do that, putting it all together again. I think that things are looking up for the Jets. They're not even playing their best hockey right now, but yet they are tied for first place in the Central Division, so that's a positive outlook on it at the very least, even though 5-on-5 play is taking quite a dip analytically at that, and this team getting outshot consistently, but hoping to turn that around as this season comes to an end. Trade deadline is coming up soon, so leave your thoughts on who you feel that the Winnipeg Jets should go out and potentially get a trade deadline. We mentioned some names today. Maybe there's some names we didn't mention that you believe that Winnipeg should be targeting, or do you think that the Jets should stand pat? I don't know. I think Dallas made it pretty hard not to go out and add some more, and I think that's what Chevy is going to do, but maybe he doesn't. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Special thanks to Evan Samoilov for coming on the show today and being the guest. Stay tuned for next week's guest list, as we'll have it on our social media pages as well as on our website at gshow.ca. Thank you to Terrico, Make-Handed Fasteners and Tools, and Goaltenders for sponsoring this edition of the show. And if you enjoyed this episode as a viewer, thank you for tuning in. If you want to stay up to date with when this podcast comes out, you can also subscribe and turn on notifications here on the G Show Productions YouTube channel so you don't miss any episodes. By the way, all these episodes are now in a playlist on our YouTube channel, so they're all easy and accessible to find all in one place. But we'll end it off with this, everybody. Nico Feniak's rendition, the man who created the outro, is going to have his outro play coming up. I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and waving so long, Jets Nation. Until next weekend, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there. Have a great week coming up, and we'll talk to you in about 7 days from now. Take care, everybody.